The smoke in Karek's cantina was thick enough to choke a Voldorian, but Vextar the Bone Render had been breathing worse air for 300 years. He sat in the corner booth, his massive Kithrin frame barely fitting in the reinforced seat. His black carapace bore scars from countless battles, each mark telling a story of survival against impossible odds. 5 young bounty hunters sat around his table, hanging on his every word. They came from different worlds and species, but they all shared the same hunger in their eyes. The hunger for easy money and quick fame. "Tell us about the hegemon job," said Korth, a blue-skinned Zillion with gold tattoos covering his arms. "The one where you took down their entire royal guard." Vextar's compound eyes reflected the dim light as he studied the eager faces around him. His mandibles clicked slowly, a sound that made hardened criminals nervous across the galaxy. These young fools had no idea what real hunting meant. "That was different," Vextar said, his voice like grinding stone. "The hegemons were warriors. They fought with honor. They expected to die in battle." The youngest hunter, a 4-armed Thakali named Jex, leaned forward. "But you still killed them all in one night." "Yes, but they were predictable. Warriors always are." Vextar lifted his drink with one clawed hand. The liquid inside was purple and steaming. "They follow patterns. Honor codes. They have rules. Rules offer prey," laughed Kryn, a massive Ursoid whose species looked like walking bears made of metal. "Real predators make their own rules." Vextar's eyes focused on Kryn with laser intensity. "You think you understand predators, cub?" The insult made Kryn's fur stand up. In Ursoid culture, calling someone a cub was fighting words. But this was Vextar the Bone Render, the mercenary who had never failed a hunt. Kryn stayed in his seat. "I know enough," Kryn said through gritted teeth. "No, you do not." Vextar set down his drink and leaned forward. The conversation at nearby tables stopped. Even the bartender, a heavily armed Vic with 6 eyes, turned to listen. When Vextar spoke, smart beings paid attention. "Let me tell you about real predators," Vextar said. 3 years ago, I took a contract. Simple job. Extract 1 target from a research station. The pay was good. The target was weak. No weapons. No backup. No escape route. "Sounds easy," said Voss, a snake-like serpentine whose scales changed color with his mood. Right now they were bright green with greed. It was supposed to be easy. Vextar's mandibles clicked faster. The target was human. The word hung in the air like a curse. Around the cantina, conversations grew quieter. Humans were new to galactic society. Most species had only heard stories about them. Weak little mammals from a backwater world called Earth. Humans? Korth laughed. "Those soft little things? They do not even have proper claws. Or armor," added Jex. "Their skin tears like paper. They live for maybe 80 years, Russ hissed. "Babies, all of them." Vextar watched them laugh and joke. He remembered being that young, that stupid, that confident. "I thought the same thing," he said quietly. The laughter stopped. The human was a female, a scientist. She had stolen some data from a consortium lab. They wanted her alive for questioning. "One human against you?" Kryn shook his massive head. "That is not even a hunt. That is collection duty." "I brought a full team," Vextar continued. 5 of us. The best weapons money could buy. We tracked her to a moon in the Kepler system. Rocky place. Thin atmosphere. Perfect for hunting. The young hunters leaned closer. They could smell a good story coming. She had no ship. No backup. Just basic survival gear and the clothes on her back. We surrounded the canyon where she was hiding. I gave her 1 chance to surrender. And? Korth prompted. She smiled. Vexstar's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. She looked at 5 armed mercenaries pointing weapons at her, and she smiled. Then she said something in her language. Later, I learned what it meant. What? Jax's forearms were trembling with excitement. Run. The cantina had gone completely silent. Even the background music had stopped. We laughed, Vexstar said. A lone human telling us to run. It was funny. So we started hunting her. He paused to finish his drink. The purple liquid steamed as it went down his throat. That was 7 days ago. When I finally made it back to my ship, I was alone. My entire team was gone. Dead. Driven mad. I do not know which was worse. One human killed your entire team. Voss's scales had turned pale yellow with fear. No. Vexstar stood up slowly. His massive frame cast a shadow over the entire table. That is the point you are missing. She did not kill them. She did something much worse. What? Kryn whispered. She hunted them. Really hunted them. The way humans hunt. Vexstar reached into his armor and pulled out a small device. It was clearly human-made primitive by galactic standards. She gave me this when it was over. A message recorder. Want to know what she said? Nobody answered, but nobody looked away either. She said her species had been hunting since before they discovered fire. That they had chased mammoth across continents. That they had hunted the largest predators on their world too. Extinction using nothing but persistence and intelligence. Vexstar placed the recorder on the table. She said humans do not hunt like other species. They do not rely on speed or strength or natural weapons. They hunt like a disease. They never stop. They never get tired. They never give up. They just keep coming until their prey collapses from exhaustion or goes insane from fear. He turned to leave, then stopped. There is one rule that has kept me alive for 3 centuries of hunting, he said, without turning around. One rule that every smart mercenary learns eventually. The young hunters waited. Never chase humans. Vexstar walked out of the cantina, leaving behind 5 very quiet bounty hunters and 1 human-made recording device. Nobody touched it. Nobody wanted to hear what was on it. In the corner, a hooded figure smiled and slipped out the back door. The hunters had been too focused on Vexstar to notice her. But she had heard every word. Dr. Sarah Chung walked into the night, already planning her next move. Behind her, the cantina slowly came back to life. The young hunters ordered another round of drinks and tried to forget what they had heard. They would remember soon enough. 3 days after Vexstar's warning, Korth sat in his ship's command chair reviewing the most lucrative contract he had ever seen. The payment was enough to buy a small fleet. All they had to do was capture 1 human female alive. You sure about this? Asked Voss, his scales shifting from green to worried orange. After what the old bug said? Vexstar is getting old, Korth replied, not looking up from the contract details. Probably lost his edge. Maybe even making up stories to keep competition away from the good jobs. The contract file displayed a holographic image of their target. Dr. Sarah Chun appeared to be a typical human female. Short brown hair, dark eyes, unremarkable build. The kind of being you would walk past without noticing. She looked harmless. Look at her, Korth said, gesturing at the hologram. Does this look like someone who could take down Vexstar's team? Kryn laughed from his weapons station. She probably weighs less than one of my arms. The contract says she stole xenobiological research data from consortium labs, Jax reported from the navigation console. His forearms worked the controls with practiced ease. High-value stuff. Biological weapons, maybe. Even better, Korth said. Smart prey is worth more alive. The ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. The target ship had been tracked here 3 days ago. Long-range sensors showed it crashed on the second moon of a gas giant. The moon was barely habitable. Thin atmosphere, rocky terrain, no settlements. Perfect hunting ground, Voss hissed with satisfaction. No witnesses. No interference. Target has no backup, reported Dex, the fifth member of their team. The silent Vic rarely spoke, but his 6 eyes missed nothing. Crash site shows signs of recent habitation. She survived the landing. Of course she did, Korth said. We need her alive, remember? They landed their ship 5 kilometers from the crash site, just outside a vast canyon system that stretched across half the moon. The canyons provided perfect cover for both hunter and prey. Standard formation, Korth ordered as they gathered their gear. Jex takes point with tracking. Kryn and Dex provide heavy support. Voss handles communications and backup weapons. I coordinate. The team was well equipped for the hunt. Advanced targeting systems, energy weapons, personal shields, atmospheric processors, emergency medical kits. Everything they needed to capture one unarmed human. Remember, Korth said as they left the ship, we want her alive. Stunners only unless absolutely necessary. The crash site was easy to find. Chen's ship had hit hard, leaving a furrow in the rocky ground. The vessel was totaled, but life support had held long enough for her to escape. Jex immediately picked up her scent trail, leading toward the canyons. Fresh trail, Jex reported, his sensitive nose twitching. Maybe 6 hours old. She is alone and on foot. Any signs of weapons? Dex asked quietly. Negative. Basic survival gear only. Food, water, shelter materials. Nothing dangerous. Korth smiled. This was going to be even easier than expected. A lone human with no weapons, no backup, and nowhere to run. They would have her in custody by nightfall. The trail led into the canyon system through a narrow gap between towering rock walls. The canyons were a maze of passages, caves, and dead ends. Perfect place to get lost. Perfect place to corner prey. She went in about 1 kilometer ahead, Jack said, studying his scanner readings. Trail is clear and easy to follow. Too easy, muttered Voss, but nobody paid attention to his worrying. They entered the canyons in formation, weapons ready. The rocky walls rose hundreds of meters on both sides, blocking most of the weak sunlight. Their armor lights cut through the shadows as they followed the trail deeper into the maze. Contact, Dex whispered after they had been walking for an hour. His 6 eyes had spotted something ahead. Human female. 200 meters. She is alone. Through his scope, Korth could see her clearly. Dr. Sarah Chun sat on a rock outcropping, apparently resting. She looked tired and vulnerable. She had not noticed them yet. Perfect, Korth whispered into his com. Jackson Dex circle around behind her. Kryn and Voss take the high ground. I will approach from the front. On my signal. The team moved into position smoothly. 5 experienced hunters against 1 tired human. This was not even a challenge. Korth waited until everyone was in place, then stepped into the open with his stunner drawn. Dr. Chun, he called out. You are surrounded. Surrender now, and you will not be harmed. The human looked up at him calmly. She did not seem surprised or frightened. If anything, she looked interested. You are bounty hunters, she said. It was not a question. That is correct. You are wanted for theft of consortium property. Come with us peacefully. Chun stood up slowly, brushing dust from her clothes. How many of you are there? The question caught Korth off guard. Why would she want to know that? That is not important. What is important is that you surrender. 5, Chun said, looking around the canyon walls. I can sense 5 of you. Good. That is a nice number. Something about her tone made Korth nervous. She sounded pleased about being outnumbered 5 to 1. Dr. Chun, you need to understand your situation. You are alone. You have no weapons. You have nowhere to run. This does not have to be difficult. Chun smiled. It was the same smile Vexstar had described. The smile that made hardened mercenaries nervous. You are right, she said. This does not have to be difficult. For me. She took a step toward him, and Korth instinctively raised his weapon. That is far enough. Tell me, Chun said, still walking slowly toward him. Did anyone warn you about hunting humans? Stop moving or I will stun you. Because someone should have warned you. She was still walking. Still smiling. Humans have been hunting since before we discovered fire. We hunted mammoth across continents. We hunted the greatest predators of our world to extinction. I said stop. Do you know how we did it? Chun asked. She was only 50 meters away now. Too close. Why had he not stunned her yet? With persistence. We are not the fastest. Not the strongest. Not the smartest. But we never stop coming. Korth pulled the trigger. The stun beam hit Chun's center mass. She should have collapsed immediately. Instead, she stumbled slightly, shook her head, and kept walking. Impressive, she said. That should have dropped me. Human biology is more resilient than your files indicate. Korth fired again. And again. Chun staggered but stayed on her feet, still moving toward him. Impossible, he whispered. Nothing is impossible, Chun said. Just improbable. And humans specialize in the improbable. She was 20 meters away now. Close enough that he could see her eyes clearly. They were not the eyes of prey. They were the eyes of a predator. The hunt begins now, Chun said quietly. Then she turned and ran into the maze of canyons. Disappearing into the shadows like smoke, Korth stood frozen for a long moment, trying to process what had just happened. His sure thing had just become something else entirely. Target is mobile, he finally managed to say into his comm. All units converge on my position. But when his team arrived, Korth was already beginning to understand that they were no longer the hunters in this situation. They had become the hunted. 12 hours had passed since Dr. Chun disappeared into the canyon maze. Korth's team should have captured her 6 times over by now. Instead, they were huddled around a small camp stove, looking at each other with growing confusion and fear. Explain it again, Korth said to Jax. The Thakali tracker was the best in 3 sectors. His species could follow scent trails across entire star systems. But right now, his 4 hands were shaking. The trail makes no sense, Jax said for the 5th time. It splits into 3 different paths. Then it doubles back on itself. Then it disappears completely for 2 kilometers and reappears on a cliff wall 40 meters. Up. Maybe she has climbing gear, suggested Kryn. The Ursoid was checking his weapons for the 3rd time in an hour. No, I would smell the equipment. I would smell the rope friction on the rocks. There is nothing. Jax's voice was getting higher. She climbed a sheer wall with her bare hands. Humans cannot do that, Voss hissed. His scales had been shifting between orange and yellow all day. Their physiology does not allow it. Then explain the trail, Jax snapped back. Korth studied their tactical display. The canyon system was a maze covering 50 square kilometers. Plenty of places to hide, but not plenty of places to move unseen with 5 hunters tracking you. Where is Dex? Korth asked suddenly. Everyone looked around the camp. The silent Vic had been on perimeter watch. His 6 eyes could see in almost complete darkness. He never left his post without reporting. Dex? Kryn called out on the comm. Static answered him. When did you last see him? Korth demanded. 2 hours ago, Voss said. He was watching the north approach. They found Dex's position easily enough. His equipment was scattered across a wide area. His rifle lay disassembled in neat piles, as if someone had taken it apart piece by piece. His comm unit was smashed. His personal shield generator had been turned inside out, but Dex himself was gone. Blood trail? Korth asked. Jack sniffed around the area carefully. No blood. No signs of struggle. No death scent. He just vanished. Six-eyed Vix do not just vanish, Kryn growled. He was angry now, which made him dangerous. Something took him. What could take Dex without a fight? Voss's scales were pure yellow now. He can see a fly land from a kilometer away. Korth looked at the scattered equipment. Someone had taken the time to dismantle everything carefully, not destroyed in anger or haste. Taken apart with patience and skill. She was studying it, he said quietly. What? Look at how the rifle was taken apart. Every component laid out in order. She was learning how it works. The implications hit them all at the same time. Their prey was not just running from them. She was adapting, learning, preparing. We stick together from now on, Korth ordered. No one goes anywhere alone. They moved deeper into the canyons as a group, following Jex's increasingly confused reports about the trail. The human scent seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. It led them in circles, up impossible climbs, through passages too narrow for their equipment. She is playing with us, Voss whispered after they reached another dead end. Humans do not play, Kryn said. They are not intelligent enough for complex tactics. Then, explain this. Jax pointed to a message scratched into the canyon wall. It was written in Galactic Standard, in neat, precise letters. You are tired. Rest now. Below the message was an arrow pointing to a comfortable-looking cave. Inside, someone had prepared a small camp. Fresh water, food packets, even sleeping materials. It is a trap, Korth said immediately. Obviously, Kryn agreed. But what kind of trap? They studied the cave carefully. No hidden weapons. No trip lines. No evidence of explosives or toxins. Just a comfortable place to rest after a long day of hunting. Maybe it is not a trap, Voss suggested. Maybe she's trying to help us. Help us hunt her? Korth laughed, but it sounded forced. That makes no sense. Nothing about this makes sense, Jax said. His tracking instincts were screaming warnings at him, but he could not identify any specific threat. They camped outside the cave, taking turns on watch. During Korth's shift, he heard something that made his blood freeze. Singing. Someone was singing softly in the darkness. A human voice, carrying clearly through the thin air. The melody was strange and haunting, almost like a lullaby. Do you hear that? He whispered into his comm. Hear what? Kryn responded. The singing stopped. Nothing, Korth said after a moment. Just nothing. The next morning, they woke to find their equipment had been rearranged during the night. Nothing stolen. Nothing damaged. Just organized. Their weapons were stacked neatly. Their supplies were sorted by type. Even their trash had been disposed of properly. She was in our camp, Voss said, his scales cycling through every color in his emotional spectrum. While we were sleeping, she was right here. Why did she not kill us? Kryn demanded. That was the question none of them wanted to think about. A predator that could reach you in your sleep, but chose not to strike, was more terrifying than one that attacked directly. Maybe she is not trying to kill us, Jax said quietly. Then what is she trying to do? I think, Jax said, his forearms wrapped around himself for comfort. She is trying to teach us something. They found the answer 3 hours later when they discovered what had happened to Dex. The Vic was sitting calmly on a rock ledge, staring out at the canyon view. He was alive and unharmed. But when they called his name, he did not respond. When they touched him, he did not react. His 6 eyes were open, but nobody was home behind them. Dex? Korth shook his teammate gently. Can you hear me? Dex turned to look at him with all 6 eyes. His mouth opened and closed several times. Finally, he spoke in a whisper. She never stopped following me. What? I could see her. Always just at the edge of my vision. Never close enough to shoot. Never far enough to ignore. For hours and hours. Walking behind me. Never getting tired. Never giving up. Dex's voice was flat and empty, like he was reporting technical data. I ran. She followed. I climbed. She followed. I hid. She found me. Always patient. Always there. Never stopping. How long? Voss asked. Forever, Dex whispered. She followed me forever. Korth checked his chronometer. Dex had been missing for 18 hours. To him, it had felt like forever. She broke him, Kryn said, without laying a hand on him. She broke his mind. Korth looked around at his remaining team. 4 hunters plus 1 broken team member who stared at nothing and whispered about being followed forever. In the distance, echoing off the canyon walls, they heard singing again. The same haunting melody. A human lullaby drifting through the thin air. Dr. Sarah Chun was still out there, still hunting them. And they were beginning to understand that she was not trying to escape. She was trying to teach them why Vextar had warned them never to chase humans. The lesson was just getting started. By the 3rd day, Korth no longer believed they were hunting Dr. Sarah Chun. They were participants in something older and more terrible than any bounty hunt. They were prey in a demonstration of why humans had earned their reputation across the galaxy. Dex sat by their small fire, muttering constantly about being followed. Sometimes he would suddenly look over his shoulder and whimper. When asked what he saw, he would only repeat the same phrase. She never stops coming. We need to call for backup, Voss said. His scales had locked into a pale gray color that meant terror in his species. Or orbital bombardment. Something. With what? Korth gestured at their communications equipment. Every piece had been systematically disabled during the night. Not destroyed, disabled. The components were carefully removed and left in neat piles, as if someone wanted them to understand exactly how helpless they had become. She was in our camp again, Kryn growled. The massive Ursoid was checking his weapons obsessively. While we were all on watch. While we were all awake. How is that possible? Jax looked up from where he was trying to track their tormentor's latest trail. His 4 arms were twitching with nervous energy. Her scent, he said quietly. It is wrong. Wrong how? Korth demanded. It carries fear scent from multiple species. Zelian fear. Ursoid fear. Thakali fear. Even some I do not recognize. Jax's voice was getting higher. She smells like she's been collecting terror. That is impossible, Voss hissed. Scents do not work that way. Then explain it, Jax snapped. Explain how she climbs impossible walls. Explain how she moves through our perimeter unseen. Explain how she disables our equipment without making a sound. Maybe, Kryn said slowly, we should listen to what Dex keeps saying. They all looked at their broken teammate. Dex was staring into the fire, occasionally glancing over his shoulder. What does he keep saying? Korth asked. That she never stops coming. The words hung in the thin air like a curse. Around them, the canyon walls seemed to press closer. Every shadow could hide a human predator. Every sound could be her approaching. Human persistence hunting, Voss whispered. Vextar mentioned it. Myths and legends, Korth said, but his voice lacked conviction. Are they? Kryn stood up and walked to the edge of their camp. Look around. Really look. What do you see? Korth followed his gaze. The canyon floor was littered with small signs of their passage. Bent grass. Disturbed rocks. Equipment caches they had abandoned. the debris trail of a hunt that had gone on too long. "We have been running for 3 days, Kryn continued. "When did we last stop to rest?" "Really rest?" Korth tried to remember. Every time they had tried to set up a proper camp, something had driven them to move on. A sound in the darkness. Equipment found rearranged. The feeling of being watched. "She has been hurting us," he said with growing horror. "Like livestock. Where?" Voss demanded. They looked around at their current position. They were in a narrow canyon with high walls and only one exit. The perfect place to corner prey. "Oh no," Jax whispered. The singing started again. Closer this time. Much closer. The human lullaby echoed off the canyon walls from every direction, making it impossible to locate the source. "Rock and roll lullaby and good night," the voice sang softly in accented galactic standard. "Close your eyes now, it will be all right." "She is all around us," Kryn said, raising his weapon. "But where?" "Sleeping now until the morning light," the song continued. "Rock and roll lullaby and good night." Dax suddenly stood up and pointed at the canyon wall. "There," he said in his broken whisper. "She is there. She's always there." They looked where he was pointing but saw nothing except bare rock. "I do not see anything," Korth said. "Look closer," said Dr. Sarachan. The voice came from directly behind them. They spun around to find her standing at the edge of their firelight, just outside the range of their weapons. She looked exactly as she had 3 days ago, except for her eyes. Her eyes were the eyes of something that had been hunting since before the dawn of civilization. "Hello, boys," she said pleasantly. "Are you having fun?" 4 weapons trained on her instantly. She did not seem concerned. "Do not move," Korth ordered. "Why would I move?" Chun asked. "This is exactly where I want to be." She was wearing their missing equipment. Dex's rifle was slung across her back. Pieces of their communications gear hung from her belt. She had turned their own tools into trophies. "You have been studying us," Kryn said. "Of course. How else do you think I learned your weaknesses?" Chun smiled. "Korth, you are afraid of losing control. That is why you keep giving orders, even when they serve no purpose." Korth felt his finger tighten on his weapon's trigger. "Kryn, you are angry because your strength means nothing here. All those muscles, and you cannot catch one small human." Kryn's growl echoed off the canyon walls. "Voss, you are terrified because your species relies on speed. And speed means nothing in persistence hunting. There is nowhere to run that I will not follow." Voss's scales were cycling through colors so fast they looked like a disco light. "And Jax," Chun's smile widened. "Poor Jax, your tracking instincts are driving you insane, because nothing about my trail makes sense to a traditional predator." "What about Dex?" Korth demanded. "Dex learned the most important lesson," Chun said gently. "He learned what it means to be hunted by something that never stops coming. Ever." She took a step forward. Every weapon tracked her movement. "You want to know how I do it?" she asked. "How one unarmed human has been hunting 5 armed mercenaries for 3 days. "Tell us," Korth said through gritted teeth. "Humans are not apex predators because we are strong or fast or clever. We are apex predators because we never give up, ever. When we decide to hunt something, we follow it until it dies of exhaustion or fear." Another step forward. "Your species evolved as ambush predators, or pack hunters, or warriors. You expect your prey to fight back or run away. You do not know how to handle prey that just keeps coming." Another step. "We chased mammoth across continents. We hunted giant cave bears until they went extinct. We followed prey for days, weeks, months, if necessary. Always walking. Never stopping. Never giving up." She was almost within range now. "The Terminators in our old movies were not science fiction. They were documentaries about human hunting behavior. Korth pulled the trigger. His stunner beam hit Chun's center mass. She stumbled, shook her head, and kept walking. "Impressive," she said. "But I've been building up resistance to your weapons for 3 days. Human adaptability is quite remarkable." Kryn fired. His heavy blast rifle should have vaporized her. Instead, she ducked behind a rock with impossible speed and popped up somewhere else entirely. "Your turn," she called out cheerfully. The hunters opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams lit up the canyon like a light show. When the weapons finally stopped, the air was filled with smoke, and the smell of melted rock. Chun was gone. "Where is she?" Voss demanded. "Right here," said her voice from directly above them. They looked up to see her hanging from the canyon wall like a spider, grinning down at them. "How is that possible?" Kryn roared. "Human rock climbing evolved from our ancestral ability to escape predators by going where they could not follow," Chun explained casually. "Also, I have been practicing on your equipment for 3 days." She dropped to the ground and landed in a perfect crouch. "Now," she said, standing up and brushing dust from her clothes, "would you like to surrender? Or shall we continue this educational demonstration?" Behind her, Korth could see something that made his blood freeze. Scratched into the canyon wall in neat, precise letters was a message. Lesson 4. Humans always have a backup plan. The hunt was about to enter its final phase, and they were beginning to understand that they had never been the hunters at all. Korth woke up slowly, his head pounding. He was sitting against a canyon wall, his hands bound with rope made from his own equipment. Next to him, Kryn and Voss were in similar condition. Dax sat nearby, still staring at nothing and mumbling. Jax was missing entirely. Dr. Sarah Chun sat across from them, calmly preparing a meal over a small fire. She looked completely relaxed, as if binding 4 dangerous mercenaries was just another Tuesday for her. "Where is Jax?" Korth demanded. "Safe," Chun replied without looking up. He had what humans call a nervous breakdown around dawn. "I left him with water and food near your ship. He should recover in a few days." "You could have killed us all while we slept," Kryn said. His voice was quiet, which was more frightening than his usual roar. "Yes," Chun agreed. But that was never the point. She finished preparing her meal and sat back to eat. Her movements were economical and precise. Everything about her radiated competence. "The contract said you stole research data," Voss said. His scales were a dull brown color that meant defeat. "I did," Chun admitted, "but not for money or power. I stole it because it contained biological weapons designed specifically to target human physiology." The mercenaries exchanged glances. Biological weapons were banned by every civilized species in the galaxy. "Someone wants to kill humans," Korth said. "Someone wants to kill all humans," Chun corrected. "The research I stole detailed plans for a plague that would wipe out every human colony in known space." "Why tell us this?" Kryn asked. "Because," Chun said, setting down her food, "you are going to help me spread a different kind of information." She reached into her pack and pulled out a small recording device. It was clearly alien technology, but modified with human engineering. "This contains video documentation of everything that has happened over the past 3 days. You 5 experienced hunters being systematically outmaneuvered by 1 unarmed human. You recorded us?" Voss's scales shifted to embarrassed orange. "Every second. From multiple angles. I have been wearing cameras since this hunt began." Chun activated the device. A holographic display showed Korth's team entering the canyon system 3 days ago, confident and well-armed. Then it showed their gradual breakdown as Chun systematically dismantled their hunt. "You planned this entire thing," Korth said with growing understanding. "Of course I did. You think I crashed my ship on this moon by accident?" Chun laughed. "I have been here for 2 weeks, preparing. I studied your team, your tactics, your psychological profiles. I knew exactly what you would do. But why? Why go through all this trouble? Chun's expression became serious. Because the galaxy needs to understand what humans are capable of when threatened. You are not the first team sent to hunt me. You are the 17th. The number hit them like a physical blow. 17 hunting teams. What happened to the others? Kryn asked quietly. Some learned their lesson and walked away. Others. Chun shrugged. Let us just say they provided valuable research. Data about the psychological effects of being hunted by humans. She stood up and walked over to where Korth sat bowed. You want to know the real reason humans are feared across the galaxy? It is not because we are strong or smart or well-armed. It is because when you threaten us, we become something your species cannot comprehend. What? Korth whispered. Inevitable. Chun began untying his bonds. Human history is full of examples. The Mongols tried to conquer us. We outlasted their empire. The Nazis tried to exterminate us. We hunted them to the ends of the earth. Disease, famine, natural disasters, alien invasions. Nothing has ever succeeded in stopping humans because we have one advantage no other species possesses, which is, we never know when to quit. Korth's hands were free now. Chun moved on to untying Kryn. Other species fight until victory becomes impossible, then they surrender. Humans fight until victory becomes inevitable, even if it takes generations. You are letting us go, Voss said. It was not a question. I am sending you back with a message, Chun confirmed. You are going to tell every bounty hunter, mercenary, and assassin in the galaxy what happens when they hunt humans. She finished freeing all of them and stepped back. You are also going to deliver this, she continued, handing Korth a data chip. It contains proof of the biological weapons program. The consortium will want to investigate. The publicity will make it very difficult for anyone to try this again. And if we refuse? Kryn asked. Chun smiled. The same smile that had terrified them for 3 days. Then I will hunt you for the rest of your lives. Not to kill you. Just to remind you that I am still there. Always following. Never stopping. Never giving up. She gestured toward the canyon exit. Your ship is that way. Jax is already there, along with food, water, and medical supplies. Your weapons will be returned when you reach orbit. The mercenaries stood up slowly, not quite believing they were free to go. Why spare us? Korth asked. Because, Chun said, dead hunters cannot spread stories. And I need the galaxy to know what happened here. As they walked toward the canyon exit, Chun called out one last time. Tell Vextar that Dr. Sarah Chun remembers their first meeting. Tell him I still have his partner's rifle. Tell him the debt between us is now settled. Korth stopped. You know Vextar? He was part of the third team sent to hunt me, Chun said casually. He was the only one smart enough to walk away when he realized what he was dealing with. That rifle I am carrying? It belonged to his partner, the one who was not smart enough to walk away. The implications sent chills through all of them. How many others? Korth asked. 14 teams decided to learn their lesson and leave. 3 teams did not. Chun's expression became cold. I gave them the same choice I'm giving you. They chose poorly. The mercenaries left quickly after that. 6 hours later, Korth's ship limped out of the system. As they prepared to jump to hyperspace, they received one final transmission from the moon's surface. It was Dr. Chun, broadcasting on an open frequency to every bounty hunter, mercenary, and assassin in the sector. Her message was simple. My name is Dr. Sarah Chun. I am human. I am still here. If you come from me, you will learn why the most feared mercenary in the galaxy once said to never chase humans. You will learn why my species has survived every attempt to destroy us for the past 10,000 years. You will learn what it means to be hunted by something that never stops coming. The transmission ended as their ship jumped to hyperspace. Korth checked the Galactic Bounty Board. Dr. Chun's contract had been cancelled. More importantly, every other contract involving human targets had also been cancelled. Word was already spreading through the mercenary networks. In cantinas across the galaxy, hardened killers were quietly turning down any job involving human prey. Vexstar the Bone Render received the message in his private quarters. He listened to the entire recording of Korth's encounter with Chun, then poured himself a drink and raised it toward the stars. "Rest well, old friend," he said quietly. "Your death has been avenged." On the moon in the Kepler 442 system, Dr. Sarah Chen packed her equipment and prepared to leave. She had work to do. Research to complete. A biological weapons program to expose. But first, she had to send a message to Earth. Her superiors needed to know that humanity's reputation in the galaxy was secure. The other species would continue to fear and respect humans. They would remember the ancient wisdom that every successful predator learns eventually. Never chase humans, because humans always win in the end. Not because they are stronger or faster or smarter than their enemies, but because they never stop coming.